This is Retire Hour.
Well, welcome into Retire Hour, the weekly show that helps you stay up to date on the ever-changing landscape that is retirement. And speaking of ever-changing landscape, gosh, now the S&P is back, almost even for the year. I mean, it's slightly above even for the year. I mean, it's been a very volatile market as of the past couple of weeks, down and then back up. Who knows where it goes from here, but we've got a full show for you. After this break, we'll be going up to Kansas City and talking with Jonathan McCoy, our lead advisor there in Kansas City. He'll be talking about someone who's inheriting over $1 million from their uncle. Yes, it's true. That rich uncle out there does exist in this story here. And then, of course, we'll be talking with Larry Clefcorn as well, one of the advisors in Market Advisor Group, Wichita. He has a client who's been working for a long time, almost 30 years, and he's getting ready to retire. And Larry Clefcorn will be sharing us some details of what's going on in that story. And then we've got Taylor Bevan with Market Medicare Advisors. She's going to be talking about if you're already on Medicare, but you haven't turned 65 yet, you'll be wanting to make sure you don't miss Taylor and I's conversation, because we'll be talking about how you have a unique opportunity for those that when you turn 65, if you've already been on Medicare prior to turning age 65. Gerald Eidelman and I will be talking about a special needs trust for family members that might have some Medicaid recipients there. And then finally, with Robert Carr, Market Tax Services, at the end of the show, we'll be talking about business owners. If you're a business owner out there, you won't want to miss this. Listen up here, guys. If you don't have a plan when you're going to retire, you need to discuss that with someone. And you don't just need to think about, who's going to take over your job. You have to think about the tax consequences of, do you just keep running it and take the income? Do you sell it to someone else? Do you do an installment sale? There's so many things that Robert Carr, one of our CPAs, tax advisors at Market Tax Services, he'll be talking with us there at the end of the show. And again, if you're a business owner, you will not want to miss that. But I met this week with a gentleman named Tim. Met with him up in Kansas City in our offices there. And Tim had some concerns. He's not quite ready to retire yet. He has a 5 to 6 year time frame. He's age 63, and his wife is 4 or 5 years younger than him. And between her pension from working for the government and his Social Security, her Social Security, all together, they're going to have about $10,000 a month in income. And so when we were shifted gears to start looking at his nest egg, the 401k, the IRA there, he'd saved about $1 million there for his retirement. And he was concerned that in the next 5 to 6 years for him retiring, that he's wanting to take less risk as he's getting older. And he's like, Matt, we're going to have a great income from Social Security and our pensions. But Matt, I'm just more concerned with if we have another big pullback like we've had. And again, it's kind of come back. It's recovered. That's good, right? But he was concerned with, he said, man, I'm not really worried about making home runs anymore. I'm wanting to just make base hits. And I said, well, okay, I'm not really a sports guy, so you got to tell me what that means, Tim. And we had the conversation where he's not looking to make double-digit returns every year for the rest of his life. And he wants to make, anywhere from 8 to 10%. That's what he said. He said, I'm not looking to make 20, 25% and up. I said, well, Tim, what has you concerned then? I mean, if you're looking for lower returns, he goes, well, I don't want the risk on the downside. I don't want another financial crisis where you lose 30, 40, 50% of your portfolio. I don't want to see these wild swings in the market and have it keep me up at night, have me worried if I'm going to have enough money in retirement. Because again, his wife is a couple years younger than him, and he's thinking, I have to make sure I leave behind a decent nest egg for her to survive on, because when he passes away, basically the smaller of the two Social Security checks in their relationship is going to disappear. His wife will continue to get paid hers, and they will make a payment making up the difference of his benefit when he passes away. So they're essentially going to be down almost $2,000 in Social Security benefits. And while he knows, this $1 million portfolio will probably be plenty for her, he also has concerns for if they need long-term care. He said, Matt, if I need long-term care like my mom did at the last years of her life, my mom was in the nursing home for 4+ years. This could have a significant impact on the amount of money I leave behind for my surviving spouse if he passes away first. In fact, he just told me he was passing away first, and I kind of kidded him about that because he was very certain about it. But when walking through their situation, we took them through our report process, and we took a look at the retirement evaluation process, other risks, and taxes. And it wasn't just the investments, but that was his chief concern. That's what brought him in. But after having a conversation with him, we found out his estate plan wasn't really the correct one for his situation. So we needed to get with an estate planning attorney and work on that. He wasn't getting any tax planning, and they had just a couple of $1,000s left in their 12% tax bracket last year that they could have did Roth conversions on, but they missed that. So we're going to make sure we get them tax planning this year to make sure that they take advantage of any of those opportunities before the end of the year comes around. And then finally, he didn't need any Medicare at the moment because, again, he was going to work for 5 to 6 years. But Corey Hebert with Market Medicare Advisors had a conversation with him just to kind of give him some basics of Medicare, so he would have a foundation of knowledge if he ever needed it or he lost his job suddenly. Or it was just a good conversation to start that process, because Medicare is an entirely different animal than your health insurance while you're working. And if you're out there thinking to yourself, yeah, I don't know if I have the right estate plan, or I don't get tax planning, or I don't even know where to start with Medicare, let alone the investment risks and where's your income going to come from in retirement. If you can't answer confidently that you have all those areas buttoned up, reach out and schedule a 15-minute introductory call with us at 833-MAG-REPORT. That phone number again is 833, the letters MAG, stands for Market Advisory Group Report. Or you can hop on over to the website at retirehour.com. We're working on a new website, retirementhelp.com. Hope to be talking about that here in the future. But just like Tom and his wife had concerns about nearing retirement, having it be there within 5 to 6 years, they had some concerns with that. They reached out and they met with us. Tom feels much better about some of the questions he had and some of the concerns. Tom was impressed with all the areas he had no idea that he had not had covered. And we were able to walk him through all those different areas. And again, if you can't confidently say that you're okay with the tax planning, you're okay with your estate plan, you're okay with your investments, you're okay with your healthcare coverage options, if you can't answer yes to all those questions, again, just schedule a 15-minute conversation with us at 833-624-REPORT, or that number again is 833, the letters MAG for Market Advisory Group Report, or hop on over to the website at retirehour.com or marketadvisorygroup.com. Well, stay tuned. We'll be right back with more coming from Kansas City right after this. Stay tuned. Back into Retire Hour, the weekly show that helps you stay up to date on the ever-changing landscape that is retirement. And these laws, these rules, these regulations, they'll change on you. And speaking of change, Jonathan McCoy in Kansas City, he's got a great story here of how the Secure Act has really had an impact on how people leave their retirement plans to people that they're not married to. In other words, they leave them to people that are not their spouse. But this is a story where it's like an uncle, I think. And worse yet, this uncle didn't have the right estate plan, let alone estate planning in place. And this is going to expedite a bunch of taxes. Am I not correct there, Jonathan?
Yeah, and by expedite, that means probably leave a lot more in the government's hands, unfortunately. So the uncle in this situation, the benefactor who recently deceased around in his mid 70s, we'll call it, was still working for his employer. It was a very interesting backstory in this whole thing, but to kind of get to the point of when we stepped into the situation, actually these folks had come to us after seeing our television show on Eye on Retirement and kind of giving them the indication that, hey, we've got the attorneys, the tax professionals, the financial advisors, so on and so forth, that can maybe help manage a lot of these different ingredients in their circumstance. But the uncle passed away and he had a will that had his nephew, Gary, and we've changed his name, but we'll call him Gary for today, as the sole beneficiary of his entire estate. And the main reason he had done that is because Gary and his wife had been struggling for years raising a disabled daughter who's now an adult living in their home. And It's well over $1 million. Won't give you exact amounts, but the cash had been settled through the probate process after the judge and the attorneys had issued a testamentary letter. So that process had already been somewhat completed at the time that they realized the uncle had over $1 million 401k that had no beneficiary listed. So with the nephew being listed as the sole beneficiary of the estate, now they've got to go to work with the custodian of that 401k to determine, can that asset be paid out to Gary at his personal income tax rates, or does it have to be paid to the estate of the uncle, which is going to dramatically increase the tax rate as those payouts are occurring. So we've got an investment, aspect to this that is really the end game in terms of how are they going to be managing this money, because Gary is ultimately trying to get out of his high stress job and potentially retire early. They've never been able to save much for themselves because they've been putting so much time and effort into taking care of their disabled daughter, who was born very prematurely. So you've got all these life circumstances that are directly being impacted by the financial issues here. And if they were just seeking the help of, say, a financial advisor that might be able to help them invest the funds, there's a lot of detail here that's going to go missing.
So Gary's uncle doesn't live in Kansas or Missouri, right? He lives way down south. I think it's like Mississippi or Louisiana.
Yeah, he was down in Texas. Yeah.
Texas. Okay, Texas. I knew it was down south somewhere there. So can you imagine, Gary's uncle, he didn't understand the risks that he had. His investments were fine. He saved, more than $1 million in his 401k. Probably Gary's uncle, again, I know the real figure. He probably would have been just fine in retirement. Didn't have that risk of running out of money. But the risk.
He was probably never planning on retiring anyway. This guy had never been married, didn't have kids, loved his job. And they actually uncovered almost 3 years of uncashed paychecks. This is a very, very unique circumstance that this guy just loved his job. He did what he did. And a lot of details in his plan went missing and unaddressed because, he never really sought, I think, the appropriate advice, which I think is at least a lesson to folks, especially if you are single out there and wanting to leave the money to another family member. It's not just a matter of having a will. That does not solve all of these probate issues that can come about, and especially the major tax issues and burdens that could be left to the next generation of beneficiaries as well.
Well, darn it, you just took what I was going to say, but I'm going to say it anyway.
Stole your thunder, I figured.
You did beat me to the punch. It wasn't the fact that Gary's uncle had the risk with his investments. It was the fact that Gary's uncle, who he did the estate plan, he had a will. It listed his nephew as the beneficiary or the recipient of all of his stuff. But Gary's uncle didn't understand that the risk of not having a beneficiary on his work plan was going to cause, I wouldn't be surprised if the total tax tab comes up to more than plus $500,000 on this deal. Wouldn't you say?
I would say it's going to be in excess of that. So it'll be well into several six figures and potentially even pushing seven figures depending on the total outcome.
And it didn't have to happen that way. It
Correct.
Did not have to happen this way. Let alone, can you imagine Gary getting this and not even knowing where to start? Do you contact the estate planning attorney? Do you contact a tax person? Do you contact the financial advisor? Who in the heck do you really start with here? And I'm glad Gary watches our TV show. I'm glad that he saw our educational weekly program, Eye on Retirement, and called us for that introductory call so then he could start this process. Because again, can you imagine, Gary probably didn't have a lot of experience in a lot of this financial technical stuff, did he?
No, and we had to enlist the services of our in-house estate planning attorney, Doug, up here in Kansas City, as well as Ashley, one of our lead CPAs, just in a single conversation. So, I sat down and kind of had that first gatekeeping meeting just to get an idea of what their situation was to begin with. And as we uncovered these significant pieces, ultimately the next steps that they're going to be coming back to us to is they've got to get with the custodian, see what the distribution rules are going to be and who and how that money is going to get taxed. Is it going to get paid out to the uncle's estate, which is going to significantly increase the tax bill on the distribution, or is it going to get taxed at his ordinary income tax rates? Once they get that answer from the custodian, again, to your point, Matt, that could have been completely avoided just simply by having a beneficiary listed. And I think a lesson to a lot of the listeners out there, it's not just for the beneficiaries, but for the benefactors, folks that maybe you're planning on leaving assets to, if it's not your children or your spouse, if you've never been married and you've got a sizable nest egg, sitting down with a financial advisory services team that can address both the distribution issues, whether you want to leave those funds to charity or other family members, Also, things like power of attorney documentation, making sure that if you don't have a spouse or children that can come in and take care of you and help you make financial and medical decisions, there's a lot of estate planning sort of flavor and need to this story that was just flat out missed on the uncle's behalf. And the unfortunate part is that it's now left the beneficiary, Gary in this case, in a position of having to really try to become the expert on his own. And, somewhat sarcastically, we should probably offer him a job because he's having to become that expert in all these areas, sort of flying blind in all of this. And that's a big reason that he came to us in the first place.
Well, and Gary and his wife Carla, I hope they'll be able to retire once they get through all this mess. But it's gonna take some time, and it's gonna cost a lot of taxes. And I'm glad Gary has us as this team that he can rely on. And if you're in situations like this, or worse yet, if you don't understand the risks that you have in your plan, and hear me out, when I say risks, I don't mean the investment risk. I mean the risks of not having a beneficiary listed on your 401k, costing your loved ones almost $1 million+ probably in taxes when this is all over with. If you can't confidently say that you have all these areas of risks addressed, reach out and schedule a 15-minute call with us, 833-MAG-REPORT. That phone number again is 833, the letters MAG for Market Advisory Group Report. Or you can hop on over to our website at retirehour.com and schedule that 15-minute conversation with us. You can have that conversation on your lunch break, after you get off work. There's a lot of times to schedule there. We'd love to have a conversation with you to see if we can address those risks out there. Well, stay tuned. We'll be right back with Larry Clefcorn right after this. Welcome back in, and we're talking about these different stories of people that are at different points, whether it's they're in retirement, they receive unexpected inheritances, or they've just been putting their nose to the grindstone, working away, plugging in, punching the clock, and then all of a sudden, boom, retirement's a little closer than you realize, right? And we've got Larry Clefcorn to share with us a story about that. And you said you have a client who's been working in a large manufacturer for 30 plus years, and you're helping him kind of make these final preps to separate, and tell us a little bit about what's going on here.
So, he started working for this large manufacturer years ago. They had an agreement going all the way back to the beginning that if he would come to work and he would do the job that was assigned to him, they would pay him a fair wage. And you know what? They both held up their part of the bargain. They stayed together. He worked there for all those years. And the other aspect to that is he had spent, and a lot of people I think will identify with this, he had spent most of the daylight hours throughout all this time working for this employer and working to prepare for his own retirement. And so he turns 62, and suddenly he begins to realize that, hey, that's not as far off as I was thinking it would be. I'm getting pretty close. In fact, I got this notice from Social Security. I normally don't read this mail, but I got this information for Social Security saying if I wanted to, I could even start Social Security now. And so, these various topics were starting to have more influence on him. Now, he felt lost, okay? He had not given much thought to things like Social Security, Medicare, his 401k. He had spent years contributing to that. How do I use that? He's thinking, how much of it do I use? What if the next few years there's a market crisis? How do I know how to invest it? Maybe I should get some help or get a financial plan of some sort. And won't taxes play a big part? Haven't I heard my buddies talking about taxes and what a big deal that is? Someone even said I need to get an estate plan. Well, I have an estate plan. Well, it was 20 years ago that
The kids were kids.
The kids were little kids back then. Now they're all married and I have grandkids. What is a smart way of doing all these elements? Who do I trust? That's oftentimes the biggest question that I know that people go through as they come to us. We don't know who to trust. Do I go with my buddy's tax guy? Do I go with my brother-in-law's law firm? Which one of these mailers about Medicare do I actually choose? Do I need long-term care or life insurance anymore? Is that a necessity? And so as I lay this out, listeners may be identifying with this sort of thing, and if you're not anywhere near that age yet, let me tell you, it's probably coming. It's likely to come get you. As he was putting the final touches together on these thoughts and these feelings and emotions, he thought to himself, or he said that, you know what? I don't need a big box, big name store. I don't need the one that, really focuses on trying to lure you in if you have a certain amount of money. I need someone I can trust. I need someone that can actually help my money grow, and yet show me how to take money from it. And what I need is someone that can answer all these questions where I don't have to run all over town. What a concept.
Well, we talk about it in the estate planning class I taught this week. If you have to rely on yourself to be the person that relay the information between the tax person, maybe your financial advisor, maybe your Medicare person, maybe your estate planning attorney or firm, whoever, it leaves a lot of opportunities for things to fall between the cracks.
Yes.
But you're saying he found a place where he could do all that at one place, huh?
It just so happens there are some financial planners and some financial advisors that are in his city, and they just happen to have an entire building full of all these different elements.
The team, you say the taxes, the estate planning, the asset management, and the medical, right?
That's right.
And if you guys are out there listening and you don't have a team working for you, reach out and schedule a 15-minute introductory call. You can do that at 833-624-7376. That number again is 833-624-REPORT, or you can go over to our website at retirehour.com. We'll stay tuned. We'll be right back after the break. Again, if you're already on Medicare, but you haven't turned 65 yet, you could have a unique opportunity that's coming up as you reach 65. We'll be talking about that with Taylor Bevan of Market Medicare Advisors right after the break. So stay tuned. You won't want to miss that. We'll be right back. Welcome back into Retire Hour, the weekly show that helps you stay up to date on the ever-changing landscape that is retirement. I'm a financial advisor, and I can help you figure out what should be your investment risk. I can figure out how to take your income in retirement and help you start your Social Security and pair all those things there. But there's so much more to it than that. You got to figure out, well, what's the tax implications? Because right now, Social Security is still taxed in retirement. You got to figure out, well, do you need a will? Do you need a trust? Do you have all those advanced healthcare agreements in place to make sure you're not going to be, unconscious and someone's not going to have the rights to make decisions on your behalf when you're in the hospital or wherever? And then do you have the right healthcare options? Because that really is its own just, boom, big can of worms. And if you're maybe out there like this story we're going to talk about with Taylor here, Lisa. So Lisa, she didn't have someone, she was single. She didn't have someone that she was on their insurance. She had to kind of always make her healthcare decisions for herself. But healthcare can be a really tricky thing to navigate. And you have this story where if someone's on Medicare prior to age 65, there's a unique opportunity there. I think I know where we're going with this, but tell me about what's going on in Lisa's story here.
Right. So Lisa came to me. She unfortunately had to apply for Social Security disability insurance. And so 24 months after being approved for that, she got automatically enrolled in Part B of Medicare. And then from there, you get 6 months from that start date to apply for a supplement plan without having to go through underwriting. And if you know anything about that, if you're on Social Security disability, underwriting's probably going to be
A little more difficult.
Yes.
Because if you're on Social Security disability, you have a disability, and sometimes that can have an impact on switching insurance plans. But that's kind of what you're going to talk to us about, right? So if someone is on Social Security disability and they've now been put on Medicare and they're under the age of 65, they're on probably a Medicare supplement, maybe an Advantage plan. Depends on what's going on in their circumstances, right?
I mean, so I did go walk Lisa through that. She was interested in the Advantage plan, but with having the disability was concerned about long-term, what that would cost her. And, sometimes people talk to their friends and their friends tell them things. This person told me this about their Medicare. This person told me that. Medicare is specific, so we needed to find out what was going to fit her financial needs and medical needs. So we did discuss that she could potentially try the Advantage plan because she has a second special enrollment opportunity. It's basically it's your initial enrollment at T65.
Whoa. These are a lot of technical terms here. Let's back up. So the initial enrollment, meaning, well, when she initial enrollment is when she turns, well, not turns, when she's been on Social Security disability for 24 months, or they turn on her Part B. That's kind of her real initial enrollment. That's what I would think, but that's not the technical initial enrollment, right?
Well, so Medicare supplements get 2 opportunities, and one of those is at 65. So since she got on before 65, she got a second opportunity at 65 to re-review that supplement plan and see if there was one that maybe had a lower monthly premium based off of her age.
But when she turns 65, she's not going to have to answer the health questions again, is what you're saying. Or she has a window of where she doesn't have to answer those health questions.
There's a 6-month period that she could qualify to change plans without going through underwriting.
So she could have one foot on the banana peel, and it doesn't matter as far as the health qualifications. I mean, she could have had a heart attack, could have been diagnosed with cancer. It doesn't matter. She can switch to a different Medicare supplement during that window. And this is kind of a unique situation because most people just have that window when they turn 65, right?
Yes. So fortunately for her, she had 4 years before turning 65, and she was curious about the Advantage plans. She wanted to see what that was like, but she was nervous. And so, I told her, come see me a couple months before your 65th birthday, and we will make those changes if whatever is going to be meeting your needs. So she gets to kind of test the waters, but ultimately we'll be able to change that for her if it doesn't work out when she turns 65. If she ends up not liking the functionality of the Advantage plan, we can switch her.
How old is she, out of curiosity?
She is 62.
62. So, okay. So she's got
3 years.
3 years where she can try out these different plans as far as Medicare Advantage. But then if she wants to go on a Medicare supplement, she's not going to have to go through the typical health questions of, what are some of the health questions they ask on the application?
A lot of them are around maybe diabetes, medication changes, surgeries, past or upcoming. If you're waiting on any results from doctors, if you've, maybe had doctors ask you certain heart questions.
She could answer yes to all that right now, and list out everything, and it's not going to matter when she turns 65. She can go switch plans again and basically again, those health questions are not going to disqualify her from changing plans.
As long as we're within that 6-month window.
Oh man, it's the government. You got to have those technicalities. You got to
Yeah.
be technical, right?
Yeah.
So is there anything else here? How did this end up? Which direction did Lisa go?
So she wanted to try the Advantage plan. Some of them have some really cool benefits built into it, and knowing that, it kind of functions like a employer insurance with maximum out of pockets, we found one that fit her budget should she max it out. And then when she turns 65, she'll be able to come in and tell me, you know what, I want the stability of just a set monthly
Plan
premium.
G. I want to put the card down after my deductible. I don't want to pay anything. That's what they
I don't want to have to worry about maxing my plan out. I just want to pay my monthly premium and have my medical needs covered.
Before we started doing this radio show every week, and you guys were telling me these little nuggets of Medicare, I know more than I used to for sure, but I still kick it to you guys because there's just so many technicalities. And I mean, this would be now I'm going to be looking out for all my clients that are on Social Security disability. As they approach 65, I'm going to make sure they come talk to you so they can review their options. And guys, if you don't have someone that can answer your questions about healthcare, let alone all the things you need to be knowing or worried about in retirement for your unique situation, reach out and give us a 15-minute, or reach out and schedule a 15-minute introductory call with us. You can do that by calling 833-MAG-REPORT. That phone number again is 833, the letters MAG for Market Advisory Group Report. Or you can hop on over to the website at retirehour.com or marketadvisorygroup.com. Well, stay tuned. We'll be back with Gerald Eidelman of Eidelman Law Firm talking about who really could benefit from what's called a special needs trust. Stay tuned. We'll be right back with more. Welcome back into Retire Hour, the weekly show that helps you stay up to date on the ever-changing landscape that is retirement. It's changing a lot. We were talking with Jonathan McCoy, one of our financial advisors in Kansas City, earlier in the show, and he was talking about that story where his uncle, or his gentleman he's helping with, Gary's uncle, had passed away and had a will, and it said everything went to the nephew. But he didn't have that beneficiary on his retirement account, and that's causing a lot of havoc there. But if you don't have a plan in place, if you don't have an estate plan in place, it can cause even more havoc than having the wrong estate planning in place sometimes. But we've got a story here with Gerald Eidelman of Eidelman Law Firm. Now, you're going to talk about the story that I'll sometimes talk about in the estate planning class. Right. And this is someone that passes away basically without an estate plan.
That's correct. Yeah, this started, you were working with a brother of the decedent, and he passed away somewhat early in life. Surprise, he had nothing in place. So the brother comes in to talk to us with the assumption that, of course, he's the natural heir. And we had to dissuade him of that proposition once we found out that his mother was still alive.
Because in Kansas, or basically any state,
yes,
they have an order of succession or
Correct.
An order of distributions, and that's not please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. That's order of operations.
Right.
But this is the order they distribute stuff to people's family if there's no plan in place.
Right, and basically, it's children, spouses. If there's none of that, which he didn't have any of that, then it goes to the parents, then to the siblings. So his brother was once removed, and he had mom over here, which would have been just fine because, okay, it stays in the family. Mom can pass it on to the brother when she passes away.
Would have been just fine, but there's a detail we've left out.
Yeah,
here, right?
There's a minor detail. She was in a nursing home, and she was receiving Medicaid because she didn't have a lot of money, and so she qualified fairly easily. Now, this was a substantial amount of money. It was over $200,000 in a retirement account. And when mom gets it, she will be automatically disqualified from Medicaid and all the benefits it brings. All that money that the brother had saved for years will just go basically to pay for the nursing home care.
Isn't that just a punch to the gut?
Oh, it's terrible because basically you're just throwing money away. This is where we come in and we make plans to prevent this kind of problem. Our trusts have a special needs trigger built in.
Oh, interesting. It's a special needs trigger built in.
Yes.
So like if there's a family member or a beneficiary that's on Medicaid,
Right.
it will not go to them. It goes to this trust for their benefit.
Correct.
Interesting.
Yeah, the special needs trust is basically created for an individual who may be on Medicaid or who is disabled or what have you. The idea is that these trusts can hold money for the beneficiaries if they are formed by a third party without interfering with their Medicaid qualifications. And this money can be used for a lot of things. The only thing it can't really be used is for shelter and food. But clothes that people will need, a television, a trip, all kinds of things that you can have this money sitting there for their benefit that otherwise would just go to, in this case, mom, just to pay for her care and $60 hairdo every month. That's about it. And we always build those in because we never know in a situation like this, if he had a trust that we have made for him, this would have prevented that money from being wasted. It would have stayed in the trust, and when mom passed away, it would have gone to the brother, and he would be able to enjoy the money and use it for his benefit rather than just, poof, exactly.
Poof is not the
That's
word.
literally,
It's not the word I want to use.
yeah, but it's going somewhere where you can't reach it anymore.
So in back to the story. So this is a gentleman that passed away, didn't have any children, wasn't ever married, didn't have a proper estate plan in place. And see, that's normally the kinds of people that are like, well, I don't need a plan.
Right.
Big deal. But this is an extreme example, and that's why we teach it in the class, where you don't know what's going to happen in the future.
That's right.
And it's always about risk management or risk planning for the what if in the future with your guys' estate plans.
and I know this guy wasn't even thinking about anything like that. This is why we bring, that's why we hold our classes and seminars, is for people to understand all these different pitfalls that can be in estate planning, so they don't miss it. Besides these individuals, I also have plans that are set up for grandchildren or children. So I have a lady who has a disabled child, has been disabled for life, and she doesn't have much money, but he's qualifying for Medicaid, gets disability and all these things, and he can pay his bills. So she wants to leave this money for him safe so that other things, clothes, niceties of
Maybe
life.
a family vacation.
That's right. So that they can, you can pay for the companion. All these things are very important for the quality of life.
I think I need to highlight pay for a companion to go on that trip with you to go on the trip. You can't pay for a companion out of special needs trust. Sorry about that.
That might be taken in the wrong context.
Yeah, I always wanted to clear that up a little bit. But if you guys are thinking to yourself out there, I don't know if I have the right estate plan for my situation. Just like we were talking with Jonathan McCoy earlier, the advisor in Kansas City, there's so many different risks out there, and I'm not just talking investment risk. It's making sure you have the right plan. It's making sure you have the accounts titled correctly. It's making sure that you're not missing tax opportunities. And if you can't answer yes to the fact that are you missing anything, or are you confident that you're not missing anything, reach out and schedule a 15-minute conversation with us by phone. You can do that at 833-MAG-REPORT. Again, scheduling that 15-minute introductory call with us, you can do that by going to the website at retirehour.com or 833-MAG-REPORT. Stay tuned. We'll be right back with Robert Carr. If you're a business owner, we'll be talking about things you need to consider if you're looking to retire. Stay tuned. Welcome back into Retire Hour, the weekly show that helps you stay up to date on all things retirement. And taxes, I think, are probably the biggest thing that get overlooked in retirement, specifically with retirement planning. And if you're just focused on the investments, it's just so easy to be missing the tax planning opportunities, let alone the tax pitfalls that are out there. And we've got Robert Carr here. Robert Carr's a CPA. He's one of our tax advisors at Market Tax Services. And this is if you own a small business, or maybe even you own a big business, but if you're a business owner and you're looking to retire, there's some considerations here tax-wise that should be concerned with, right?
Yeah. How do you exit? There's several different ways to exit your business. You can sell it. You can have internal buyouts. You can just transfer it to a family member. And that's one of the biggest things that we've used, over the past 2 decades I've been doing is gifting ownership of the membership units or stock to family members.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
What you say, Ian?
There's special items that you can use, let's call it that way, or techniques that you can actually take advantage of the tax code and save potentially millions of dollars in taxes just by transferring stuff through gifting.
Interesting. So this is a strategy where, if they're wanting to transfer ownership to a family member, they can do it through gifting. Mm-hmm. Now, there's gifting, there's the exclusion. Well,
there's
talk about gifting.
So gifting has a couple different components. There's an annual exclusion and there's a lifetime exclusion. An annual exclusion gets renewed every single year. You can use it up. You don't have to file any kind of gift tax return as long as your amount is underneath that. The lifetime exclusion comes into play when you gift beyond the annual exclusion, which does require a gift tax return. And that's what happened in the case of this client. He had a multi-million-dollar business, had 4 kids, and was looking to transfer the ownership to the kids over time. And this was several years ago that we worked on this, 2011. So the exclusion was a lot lower than it is now. It was $5 million per husband and spouse, and so we did a joint gift between husband and spouse, and so we were able to take $10 million exclusion, but using discounts through marketability and minority interest discounts, we were able to basically. So marketability is. You have a small private business. You're not going to be able to go out and sell that very easily. So you're taking a discount on being able to just walk out to any person and sell your business. Minority interest, his was not giving away, majority. So, full voting power. So the interest that he was giving to the kids didn't really didn't really give the kids anything other than just revenue that was coming out of the business.
And they would have inherited it one day anyways.
Exactly.
But this was a better way. We never know what taxes are going to be in the future.
Exactly.
I think after 4 years, they're going to be up. But this is a tax planning tool where you can start using some of that exemption now.
Yes.
And that exemption, like you said, is much higher today.
It is. It is. It is much higher today. But at the end of this year, right now, current law,
we don't know.
Looks like it's going to get cut in half. But again, we don't know what Congress is going to do for the next 6 months.
They've got that one big beautiful bill. And they're trying to cram it through.
Yeah.
And I will give them credit. They keep advancing the ball.
Yep.
It's kind of like watching the Chiefs. They're doing a yard at a time down the field, but they're coming out and they want to pass it by this summer. And we would love tax clarity for next year. But if you own a small business or you own a business and you're looking to maybe do some retirement planning, there's more to it than just, where's your 401k?
Yeah.
Because it's the shares of the business can just be just as much of an asset as
exactly
their 401k. There's different ways to transfer it.
Yeah, and depending upon how you transfer it, there may be tax implications. Whether you sell the assets, you may have capital gains or depreciation recapture. If you sell stock, you may have capital gains that you may have to offset with loss harvesting or something like that.
That's why we drag you guys in the conference room when those questions and concerns come up from people, because again, I'm just a financial advisor. I know quite a bit about the tax code, probably more than the average advisor, because I sit next to these sharp guys all the time telling me tax advice in my ear. But the thing is, this stuff changes.
Yeah.
And you guys have to stay up on it. And if I'm just listening to you guys and saying, I didn't know something changed, so many areas to have things fall between the cracks. So many opportunities for the ball to get dropped if you're working with these different financial professionals and you're having to go and relay all the different information between them. That's why we work together around this table in the same room. Having a conversation in real time allows for planning opportunities and allows us to go down the rabbit hole, which oftentimes we do.
We do, yeah.
Because it's that conversation where maybe it's an idea from the advisor, but then you got to figure out how does it impact their taxes, and sometimes how does it impact the estate plan. And if you guys can't answer confidently that you have all the areas of risks in your retirement plan, you got them all buttoned up. If you can't say that for sure, reach out and schedule a 15-minute conversation with us by phone. And you can schedule that by calling 833-MAG-REPORT. That phone number again is 833, the letters MAG for Market Advisory Group Report. Or you can hop over to the website at retirehour.com or marketadvisorygroup.com. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week.
Unless otherwise indicated, all client names have been changed to protect their identities. Investment advisory services are offered through Foundations Investment Advisors LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. The content provided is intended for informational and educational purposes only. The views, statements, and opinions expressed herein are those of the individual speakers and not necessarily those of Foundations and its affiliates. The information contained herein does not constitute an offer to sell any securities or represent an express or implied opinion or endorsement of any specific investment opportunity, offering, or issuer. Any discussion of performance or returns are not indicative of future results. Each individual investor situation is different, and any ideas provided may not be appropriate for your particular circumstances. Foundations only transacts business in the states where it is registered or excluded or exempt from registration requirements. Registration as an investment advisor is not an endorsement of the firm by security regulators and does not mean the advisor has achieved a specific level of skill or ability. No legal or tax advice is provided. Always consult with a tax professional. Legal services are offered by Edelman Law Firm. Tax services offered by Market Tax Services. Market Advisory Group does not provide legal or tax advice. Any comments regarding safe and secure investments and guaranteed income streams refer only to fixed insurance products. They do not in any way refer to investment advisory products. Rates and guarantees provided by insurance products and annuities are subject to the financial strength of the issuing insurance company, not guaranteed by any bank or the FDIC. The guest commentators featured in this show are not investment advisor representatives of Foundations and do not provide advisory services. Market Advisory Group does have several investment advisor representatives that can provide such services. This is not endorsed or affiliated with any U.S. government agency, the Social Security Administration, or associated with any federal Medicare program. We do not offer every plan available in your area. Any information we provide is limited to those plans we do offer in your area. Please contact Medicare.gov or 1-800-MEDICARE to get information on all of your options. A Roth conversion may not be suitable for your situation. The primary goal in converting retirement assets into a Roth IRA is to reduce the future tax liability on the distributions you take in retirement or on the distributions of your beneficiaries. The information provided is to help you determine whether or not a Roth IRA conversion may be appropriate for your particular circumstances. Please review your retirement savings, tax, and legacy planning strategies with your legal/tax advisor to be sure a Roth IRA conversion fits into your planning strategies. All rights reserved.